Hi everyone, welcome to Think Smart Home. Today we are going to talk about securing our Synology NAS. We can reduce the risk of getting hacked by using basic but effective security setting in Synology DSM. Alright, so let's get started. The first one is changing all default ports. It's always good practice to change default ports, especially if you are opening your NAS for external access. This includes login ports for DSM or any other services which you are using like Synology Drive, File Station or Virtual Machine Manager, etc. It's a good idea to expose ports for specific services. This will enable you to access these packages directly rather than going through DSM every time. This can also be handy in case you want to give someone access to any specific application. You can easily do so by just using the port for that application without giving them access to whole DSM portal. Then we have multi-factor authentication. Adaptive MFA is the minimum under multi-factor authentication that should be enabled. Adaptive MFA will kick in when you are trying to log into your Synology NAS from any unrecognized device or any unknown WAN connection or is a password-only admin account. Ideally, it is highly recommended to enable MFA for at least all the admin users. Alright, the next one is account protection. Now, why do we need to enable account protection? Let's say multiple different IP addresses are trying to log into your NAS with the same username. Basically, they are trying to brute force their way into the system. They won't be blocked by autoblock in this case because they are coming from different IP addresses. But if you have enabled the account protection, this setting will automatically lock the account for 30 minutes and should stop the attack. Then definitely we'll talk about autoblock. Default settings for autoblock are more than enough because to brute force with these settings will take years and years to get into the system unless you don't have even a standard 8-character password. Just make sure your auto block is enabled with the default setting and it should be good to go for most of home users. It is highly recommended to enable DDoS protection, especially if you are opening your Synology NAS to the internet. The next one is users and the groups. Under users, make sure the default system user admin is disabled. You must create your own account with admin rights and keep the default one disabled. Then, under administrators, check the members. The users who do not need to be administrators must not have admin rights. This is because they can accidentally mess up things or they can break anything unknowingly or accidentally. You can always use delegate option to grant them specific permissions just in case if they need. Also, under Advanced tab, apply password strength rule. At minimum, I would recommend to check include mixed cases, numeric characters, and set minimum length to at least 8. Alright, so the next setting which we are going to talk about is very important. Under file services, go to SMB settings, and here the most important setting is SMB protocol. The maximum should be SMB version 3, but the minimum setting must be set to at least SMB version 2. Do not use SMB version 1 because there are known exploits to that service and this can be compromised. You must not use SMB version 1 at home, especially where your Synology NAS is not properly firewalled. I would say keep other file services disabled unless you really know what you're doing. The next setting which we are going to talk about is external access. The first one under external access is Quick Connect. If you are running DSM on a standard Synology hardware and you are a home user, feel free to use Quick Connect service. It's a good secure way of accessing your NAS over the internet, but please keep it in mind that with this one you cannot manage the access of your NAS. For example, as soon as you enable Quick Connect, whoever knows the Quick Connect ID or the URL, they will have access to your Synology NAS login page. Just for your info, previously Quick Connect was not supported by IP ban, but since DSM 7.2 or above, Quick Connect does support the IP ban, so it's an addition to the security of Quick Connect. The next one for external access is DDNS. I don't recommend using DDNS for the home users at least because this involves opening the ports in your router. If you are really opening the ports in your router, I believe you already know exactly what you are doing and you have the idea of all the risks involved. There are other better ways, in my opinion, to achieve the same. For example, you can use VPN or you can use similar services like Cloudflare tunnels. If you are opening ports and opening your access to Synology NAS over the internet, make sure that you have implemented an SSL certificate and has forced HTTPS connection. I have created a video on how to access your NAS over the internet through a secure encrypted connection without opening ports on your router using the Cloudflare tunnel. I'll leave the link to that video down in the description below just in case if you want to watch that. Alright, so the next one is using the firewall. This setting is not the must have if you already have a dedicated firewall in your network or your router is acting as a firewall. If you have a very basic router which does not support firewall feature, Synology Firewall is very handy to have in this case. I'm not going to go into the details on how to set up the firewall on Synology NAS, but just to show you some settings, once you enable the firewall and you have selected the interface, make sure all the interfaces are selected unless you really want to have separate firewall for each interface. The firewall rules are checked from top to bottom, and as soon as any rule matches, it will jump out of the system and the next rule will not be checked. So the first rule which you should add is all deny. This will always stay as the last rule in your firewall and you can add all other rules before this one. So if none of the other rules match, the last rule will be executed. That means the access will be denied. Regarding the other rules, you can tweak your firewall to strengthen your security based on your use cases. Let's say, for example, you have a family friend which you want to give access to your NAS and they have a static public IP address which does not change. In this case, you can add their static IP in here in the firewall for a specific service or an application. This way only them will be able to access that service and no one else over the internet will have access to that. Alright, so next one is also an important one is auto update. Under the update and restore, you should have checked the first option at minimum. This will automatically patch any critical security issue or bug. Or you can also check the auto install all the updates to get the latest features. But the first option is recommended at minimum. Now the last one which we are going to talk about is about the snapshots. The snapshots are a very powerful feature of Synology NAS. And snapshots are very critical for security and data recovery. Snapshots can be lifesaver in case you have deleted some of your data all of your data accidentally, or you became a victim of ransomware attack where someone hacked into your Synology NAS and they have encrypted all your data. Now to use snapshots, you must install snapshot application from Package Center, and the most importantly, your Synology NAS must be on BTRF file system. Most of this newer Synology NAS, they do support BTRFS, so it's highly recommended to always use BTRFS when you are setting up your NAS. Now, what if you already have a NAS which is set up with ext4 file system and not the BTRFS? In this case, you'll have to delete the volume and recreate it again to get it changed to BTRFS. That means you'll have to back up your whole volume somewhere else and then delete the whole volume, recreate it again by selecting the BTRFS as its file system, and then restore all your data. Now back to the snapshots. In snapshot application, you can enable snapshot replication schedule. This will also include immutable snapshots. Now, what are immutable snapshots? Immutable snapshots are the one which can't be deleted, unlike the standard snapshots. So this is a very powerful feature if it is used properly. I'll be creating a detailed video on snapshot application soon. So subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to get notified when I do so. Alright, so these are all the basic security setting for DSM which should act as a defense in depth and can greatly reduce a successful attack on your Synology NAS. That's it for this video. I hope you liked it. Please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I'll see you in the next video.